What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is a somber episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast as we break down the final 3 episodes of Andor Season 2. Final 3 episodes of Andor, the series in general, as it leads us right into Rogue One, which we, of course, know the fate of our beloved Cassian Andor and what happens to him in that movie. But we'll get into that further on. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. If you're joining us live, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming content, because we got a lot of stuff coming for you. On Thursday, tomorrow morning, we have the Comic Corner, a regular live show, but then we have a very special interview coming immediately after the live show that we will stay live for as well. So stay tuned for that on Thursday morning. On Friday, we will have a special extra bonus live show at noon Eastern time as we break down all the trailers that have dropped over these past few days. We'll start off with some Peacemaker, which was a while ago, but we never got a chance to talk about that Peacemaker trailer. We'll talk some Superman, as the trailer for that just dropped today, as well as Ironheart, which the trailer also just dropped today. I'm excited to talk about that one because I kind of thought, based on how little they've been promoting it and how the release schedule isn't really, prime time, 1 episode a week, I was worried that this maybe wouldn't be the highest quality, that maybe they were worried about the quality. But I will say that trailer kind of flipped me. It looks really, really damn good. So I'm excited to break things down. Joining me, as always, my good friend and co-host, Damon Gray. How you doing, Damon?
Dandy. Doing dandy. I just saw Carlos, who's with us today, in Chicago. And we had some deep dish casserole. And it was delicious.
Shout out to Brandon in chat, who you also got to see in Chicago. He hasn't seen the episodes yet, so he's bouncing out as soon as we start talking about it. However, he's here to come and hang out before we do. So shout out to Brandon. Thank you for coming to hang out. And yeah, you got to meet Brandon in Chicago in person for the first time. You got to meet Carlos in Chicago for the first time, which I had the pleasure of doing 2 years ago. It was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a while ago now. Speaking of the devil, Carlos joining us once again for another episode of our Andor podcast. How you doing, Carlos?
I'm doing real good. That casserole's been sitting nice for a few days now. So yeah. It was good though,
It's
David.
heavy. It's good. It's good. And you took me to a good spot, and I really appreciate that, by the way. You took me to a very good spot. It's just not pizza.
This is what the civil wars will be fought over. The Agents of Fandom civil war will be a pizza war.
As much as I love to give Damon a hard time about almost anything, I do agree with his pizza tastes, and so I can't be too hard on him here. But
it is good, Carlos. It is good.
This is why we need Canada to be the 51st state.
You, as I know your political affiliations, Carlos, would be happy if Canada became the same country as the United States. But I don't think the Republicans would be too fond of that, considering we would probably be about 51st through 59th state at least. And I think it would probably be a pretty progressive group of people that you're bringing in here from up north. Speaking of Carlos's thoughts on politics and the state of the world today, as well as the state of the world within the Andor universe, you can check out his brand new article up on agentsoffandom.com. Carlos, I'll let you give a little tease about this new piece that you just wrote.
Okay, sure. So basically, I've been having big feelings for the past few months about what's going on here, and I think Andor was speaking directly to that moment because Andor is an essay about how fascism happens, how it rises, and also how revolutions happen. And so we're getting kind of the dichotomy of it. And yeah, this essay is kind of about how if you look at what the Empire's doing in Andor, there are very real world parallels, and you don't need to look that long ago or in any galaxies farther away than our own. That's the tease.
And I agree with what Brandon put here in chat. Carlos is one of the most gifted writers I've ever come across. Go read his article because it's absolutely true. He's a menace in the chats when we don't have him on the show. But when he puts his fingers to the keyboard for good instead of evil, there's some really, really incredible stuff that comes out of it. I want to talk about what you guys are watching and reading and listening to before we dive into this Andor episode. For me personally, not a whole lot new. I've been making my way through my Star Wars Rebels rewatch, 10th, 11th rewatch, whatever it is. I put a poll up in the YouTube chat that I would love if people answer. Is Andor the best Star Wars project ever? For me, it's a no. Because for me, it's the best Star Wars project ever is none other than Star Wars Rebels, which I'm in the midst of my rewatch of. So for me, it's a no. Carlos, I feel like for you, it's a yes.
It's
Damon,
a resounding yes.
I know for you, it's probably a no as well. But I'll let you give your thoughts on that in your portion of what you're watching. So what you've been watching, Damon.
Okay. So you want to tease that, let that simmer before I answer that question?
Up to you.
Okay.
We were talking pre-show how all three of us have had a long ass day today already. So we're just going to let it flow. No rules. We're just going to do what we got to do.
All right. I'll start with what I've actually been watching, what I've actually been reading, what I've actually been listening to. A quick shout. I know Sean's been on the show a lot, and he'll appreciate this. Sleep Token's new album is beautiful. It's phenomenal. Even if you aren't a metalhead, I think you would really enjoy it. Go check that out because Sleep Token are beyond genres at this point. It's quite impressive what they've become. What I've been reading is this little book up here, right over my shoulder. I'll tease for tomorrow. Gwenpool, #1. Yes, Gwen Stacy's dug up, dead, resurrected zombie body coming out of the ground. And what if I told you, both of you, that this book isn't as terrible as I anticipated? So there you go. There's your tease for tomorrow. I may have liked it more than I anticipated. Is it because Jeff is in the book? Is it because Kate Bishop is in the book?
Yes.
Maybe.
Certainly doesn't hurt.
It does not hurt. Now, is Andor the best Star Wars TV project ever? Is it my favorite Star Wars TV project ever? Is a different question. These are two different things. Because is it my favorite? No. TJ and I both agree in terms of and I think Carlos and I we had a nice discussion about this too. I was like, I like my fantasy Star Wars. I like my lightsabers. I like my Force. I like my silly Jedi stuff. But in terms of quality, in terms of the story that it's telling, I definitely think it has the strongest case for it. And TJ knows because I kind of ranted to him early on in this series. I was like, holy crud, this thing is slower than mud. It's molasses. We are crawling through it. But when it gets going, and when you're in those moments, and when it's telling you things and portraying it, not just telling you, showing you the evils of the Empire and the evils of the tyranny and the rebellion of it all, it's quite beautiful. And it's very well done. I think it could have been better, in my opinion, personally, if it was just cut down a little bit, just slightly, trim a little bit of the fat. But the fat is also kind of you say or stretch it out. To me, I say vice versa. I say trim it down a little bit. I think it has the strongest case of any Star Wars television show to say it's the best. but it's not my favorite.
If going back to Damon's thoughts on the Gwenpool comic, you want to hear more about his thoughts, join us live Thursday morning for the Comic Corner, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. In addition to the full thoughts on Gwenpool, you'll hear his full thoughts on Absolute Batman, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Black Panther, and more. And then immediately following the comic reviews, we will be chatting with Ernie Altbacker. He's a writer for Batman Hush, Justice League Dark, Injustice, and much, much more. He's got a new comic coming out. So Fat Thor and AF are going to be chatting with him right after the show. Carlos, what you been watching? And elaborate on why you think Andor is the best Star Wars anything ever.
What have I been watching? I don't know that I've watched anything other than Andor this week. I think this was I outside? What? So this week was the first week that we got anything resembling spring into summer weather. It was like in the near 80s. So I was in my backyard. I was out. I went to the Art Institute of Chicago for Mother's Day, and we went to a lovely Frida Kahlo exhibit there. Also didn't know that like American Gothic is at the Art Institute of Chicago. It's like, wait, I can just see this thing. So yeah, I've been out in the world. That's what I've been watching. The world happen. Now, why do I think Andor is the best I was going to say Starbucks. God, it's been a long day. Why do I think Andor is the best Starbucks ever? No, Andor is the best Star Wars to me of all time because it transcends genre storytelling. It transcends television storytelling. It really does get into the highest form of artistic endeavor. Like it is telling us something. It is about something. It is not, good guys and bad guys, and you don't really know, the good guys look like that and the bad guys look like that. You don't really know like what exactly is at stake here. You understand everything about this galaxy in a new way because it exists. Andor really like shades in so much for folks who don't read the novels or aren't in the extended universe, things like that. It really shaded a lot of stuff in. It really made the Empire seem more cruel, more dangerous, more competent than they've ever been, I think, shown in film at least. And you get the sense of like the people on the ground level who aren't even really sure the Force exists. Like, we know what the Force can do. The average person, there are trillions of people in a galaxy. Like, the average person has never, has maybe seen one guy who like, yeah, he told me not to go out that day.
They've heard about the Jedi of old, but because no one had seen it firsthand, except for the real old people,
exactly,
you don't really get that, like, there are people on our Earth who, they're flat earthers, Holocaust deniers, whatever, what have you, because they didn't see it firsthand. And because of that, they don't believe it was real. They've read too many conspiracy theories on the internet. I'm sure there's multiple kinds of internets within the galaxy far, far away as well. We already saw ISB News and the Fox News comparison, Imperial News and the Fox News comparison. So I feel like it's one of those things where, because they aren't hearing about the fantastic Jedi Order doing all these crazy things, there's thousands of Jedi throughout the galaxy. No, there's 4 somewhere in the deep stretches of galaxy right now. So it's like, it's not as easy to come by as it used to be.
Exactly. And that's what I think, so on the genre storytelling level, yes, like it's shading in the world in a way that we've never really seen. But in terms of like messaging, the average person who watches Andor will be able to look outside and go like, oh, I've seen this. Like, this is just like that episode of Andor. Or this is, like, oh, when that guy that rebel throws a rock at the Imperial, soldier that starts a massacre. Like, yeah, read a newspaper. Like, that's happening. Like, that's happening in the world where, you've got asymmetrical, forces fighting each other, calling it a war when it's really a massacre. It helps us synthesize the news in our own way. It helps us understand our world, helps us perceive it better. And I think that that's sort of like the highest calling that genre storytelling can do.
Very, very well said. Let us know, do you think Andor is the best Star Wars project ever? If you're watching us on YouTube, drop it in the YouTube chat. If you're listening to us on the podcast feed, let us know on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. I want our I had listed in the rundown Andor Season 2 spoiler-free thoughts, but I feel like we kind of just went through a lot of that. I will kind of give us one more chance, though, to wrap it up. And I will say that I don't think I have a tough time rating Andor Season 2. And that's because I think as a whole, for me, it was not as strong as Season 1. I don't think it was as cohesive because of the time jumps. I feel similarly, but also opposite of Damon, where I don't think it should have been cut down. I think it should have been 4 seasons, even 3, but at least 3, and then 4 or 5 potentially, like the original plan was. Before Diego Luna said, "No, I'm not doing 5 seasons," and they cut it down to 2. The time jumps and the slow start that we referenced earlier didn't do it for me. I know, like, that's not necessarily a popular opinion. We were talking with Arzu last week, and she loved the first arc of the season, and for me, that was my least favorite one. And so it hits differently for different people. But I thought the lows of Andor Season 2 were much lower than Andor Season 1, but the highs, specifically the episode 7, 8, 9 arc for me, were among the very best Star Wars anything ever I've ever seen. I don't think anything will ever eclipse Twilight of the Apprentice Part 2, the Season 2 finale of Star Wars Rebels for me, in terms of like pure awe and excitement with what's going on. But Mon Mothma's speech and Andor trying to rally her out of there, damn, that came very, very close and became a top tier Star Wars moment for me. And so I think Season 2, less consistent than Season 1. The lows were lower, but the highs were much, much higher. Damon, spoiler-free review of Andor Season 2.
Yeah, I'll parrot a little bit of what you said. For me, my biggest issue with the structure of this season were the time jumps, because the first episode per arc essentially had to serve as a catch-up moment. Until, ironically, the last 2 arcs, which they did pretty well with, where we're going right into it. But the first episode of the first 2, 3 arcs, it was like, and here's what happened, when it was like, all right, okay. And then it's like, and here's what's setting it up. So it is moved much, much, much slower. And that's my biggest critique of it, was like the very first few arcs. I'm like, man, this is a slog for me. This is a bit of a slog. But the highs, like you said, were pretty damn high. That episode 9 is pretty great. Episode 8 is pretty great. 7 also very good. I loved episode 10. Episode 10 may be my personal favorite of the series. And that's because, like, I may now have like a new top 5 favorite Star Wars character, and they're like just a random, not random, but just like a normal person rebel, because she just puts matters into her own hands and just says, "Oh, Luthen, you're tired. Fuck you." Like, we got to get shit done. And I love her for that. It shows pretty good. I will say this as well, and I know this is something that Diego Luna has said. when promoting the show. And I did this exact thing today after I finished the finale. This is a perfect, if you want to really enhance your Rogue One experience, to watch this show and then go immediately into Rogue One. It's borderline perfect. When we get into spoilers, I have thoughts and questions. When we get into spoilers, I'm like, I have some things here. Regardless, it serves as a very nice supplement, an extra bonus to really watch this and deep dive this before going into Rogue One. And it makes me appreciate, and I love Rebels and you love Rebels, but like that rebellion era of Star Wars between 3 and 4, between Revenge and Star Wars for you old heads, is just fascinating. And I don't know how much more they can really milk out of this, but I feel like it's endless at the same time.
I think that was very well said. After watching the screeners for this, watched all of Andor within the span of a couple days, straight into Rogue One, straight into the original trilogy, straight into Rebels. So I've just been in the midst of like my full Star Wars golden era rewatches. I'm sure that'll go right back into the prequels and then probably the Clone Wars after that. Heck, maybe the Clone Wars in between. Maybe we just really push our way through Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones as quick as we can, and then just dive into the Clone Wars, cap it off with my favorite Star Wars movie, Revenge of the Sith. Carlos, give me the spoiler-free review of Andor Season 2.
Okay, spoiler-free review. As a season of television, I don't know that it necessarily even legally exists as a season of television. Like it doesn't, it feels more like chapters in a book than it does one cohesive season of television. It felt like 4 miniseries released week to week. If they would have done this every 6 months for the next 2 years, released a new 3 episodes, like I think people would have received it differently. But I do think it's some of the very best writing that has ever happened on television, period, let alone for Star Wars. I think the highs are very, very high. Really, I took issue with like maybe one character's storyline in one of the arcs. Like that's really kind of it. There are nits to pick, of course. There are darlings that had to be laid by the wayside in order to get everything down to 3 episode miniseries. There are some things that you're just going to have to not know by the end. But I do think it's just some of the very best writing paired with some of the very best filmmaking I've ever seen on television. And then paired with actors who can elevate bad dialogue. So when you give them great dialogue, it sings. And that's where I'm at. It's not a pizza, but it's a great casserole. How does that feel, Damon?
I do want to know, like, I haven't, true viewership numbers are so hard to find in today's day and age of streaming. So I don't actually know how many people are watching Andor, how many new subscribers have been brought to Disney Plus because of Andor Season 2. Even though it is one of those things that you can not watch anything Star Wars and still watch Andor and think this is great television, I still feel like because of the massive brand Star Wars is, the lightsaber Jedi stuff probably naturally will appeal to the public more in terms of like making money standpoint. So for me, if I'm Lucasfilm, I really say to Tony Gilroy at this point, like, we will offer you a blank check to write and direct, or show run if it's TV, direct if it's a movie, literally any Star Wars story you want that involves some Jedi and some lightsabers. Because like we know that you can make peak. Now make us peak something that's going to make a ton of money and make everybody love us again. That's kind of the thought process if I would go on if I was Lucasfilm.
Oh, one last thing before we move into spoilers that I'll say. I think this is one of my critiques that I didn't bring up. And I think the show almost suffers, not almost, I think it does suffer a bit from what I'll call like Game of Thrones syndrome, where there's oftentimes I feel like too many fucking characters who I literally cannot remember their name. Like there's oftentimes in this show I will literally go, oh no, not her. And then it's like, what was her name again? I think I remember her face. Like, it's stuff like that. And I think it, because of how deep it suffered from that for me, where there's a certain set of characters that I grew attached to. And because I knew almost everyone in the show is pretty much expendable, I almost taught myself when I'm watching it not to get too attached to most of these characters. And I think that's one of its issues.
I felt that definitely in that first arc, like I didn't learn any of those people's names, and then the Gore arc as well. I had trouble learning all those different rebels, but I think that is if we had more seasons and we got to stretch out their arcs a little bit more, we probably would have got to know those characters a little bit better and been able to keep that in our minds. But spoiler warning for the final 3 episodes of Andor Season 2. Let's dive into it. Starting with episode 10. It's a fun one. There's not really much Cassian in this one, if Cassian's even really
fun one
in it at all. It's a fun one. Like it's exciting. Like it's not fun from a I enjoy what happened standpoint. It's fun from a I am on the edge of my seat, excited what's gonna come next standpoint.
It's up there with The Last of Us Season 2.
Yeah, just real enjoyable, happy-go-lucky stories.
Yeah, what a romp.
Yeah. We start with Lonnie and Luthen's meeting, and even though I feel like for some, Lonnie could be one of those characters that don't really remember his name. He pops in and out throughout the series, but he truly is, like maybe the most important spy in Star Wars history.
He went, oh no, really that guy.
But in terms of people who have been undercover, like this is the most famous ISB plant, Imperial plant, rebel spy of anyone ever. And he reveals to Luthen a whole bunch of shit. One, Dedra's onto them. He's had full access to her computers. He finally got a chance to sneak into her quarters. Dedra is onto him. We got to figure shit out now. 2, which we all knew. The Empire's energy program, it's a lie. It's all bullshit. They don't care about energy. Why is S.H.I.E.L.D. even in the name of clean energy anyways? I'm kind of the only name in clean energy right now. Shouldn't they have consulted me? Little Avengers reference. Brand synergy.
I understood that reference.
There it is. They don't give a damn about the energy program. It is, of course, the Death Star. And Luthen, being the sneaky guy that he is, he knows Lonnie's work has been indispensable. He knows Lonnie has a family to go back to, and he wants to be protected at all costs. But Luthen cares about one thing, and one thing only, and that is making sure that the rebels beat the Empire, topple the Empire, and he will make sure that happens at whatever cost. And so to avoid loose ends, to avoid Lonnie being captured and tortured, he shoots him. and he takes him out of the fold. The MVP of Rebel spies in the history of Star Wars gets taken out by a fellow Rebel, Damon.
So the reveal of this, they're talking, then all of a sudden you're back in the park, and I literally went, "Oh, look, a loth cat!" And then it pans up to a dead. Sorry, he was another one who I said, "What's his name?" And it was like a dead Lonnie is his name.
Yep,
thank you. A dead Lonnie. I just went, "Oh no." Rip, I guess. I mean,
I told you a couple weeks ago. I've been referring to him as Lieutenant Weasley. I didn't because he's red haired, and it's so good that his name is Lon Weasley. That's his name now. That's what I'm going to call him.
Weasley. Yeah. In reality, I guess for his family, this was the safest way for his family not to get in on anything, because they just thought that he was just another victim at this point. They had no suspect that he was in on anything. So I guess for the safety of his family, this worked out. But yeah, rip.
Carlos, what were your thoughts on the opening sequence here, where it's we get the big info dump from Lonnie, and in the back of my head, I kind of knew what Luthen was going to do the whole time, and I just didn't want to be right.
When a spy is like, I need all that information right now before we go to another place. It's like, because you're not going to the next place, Lonnie. Come on. Okay. You know how I'm going to pick on Marvel for a second. You know how when Marvel will release something and they'll go, this is our 70s spy thriller. And then you watch it and it's like, okay, I guess. I mean, you clearly watched a movie, but there is nothing in here that necessarily speaks to that. This is Star Wars' spy thriller, and every political spy thriller needs two guys on a bench at a park in the Capitol talking about spy things, and one of them ends up dead, and it's perfect. It works out so perfectly. I love this. I also love that Luthen, and it's been progressing, is not as cool and collected because time is running out. He knows the pace has to get picked up because we're, like I said, I think last week, we're in the end game now. There's less time for actually his game. There's less time for deception. It's more everyone kind of knows everyone's cards, which is why Lonnie had to go, because he knows that they know about Lonnie. Or if they don't, they will in an hour. He knows.
I think that was very well said. And I put down the spy, guy sitting on the bench part. I like that a lot. And with it being the end game for them, but we see the Mon Mothmas, the Bail Organas going through very, very difficult times, of course. But they're not quite in the trenches in the same way until now. Until they're back at Yavin and basically it's go time. We are figuring shit out now. Let's get into it. When you see these people like Luthen and Saw Gerrera, who have been in the thick of it since day one, you see these dudes just losing their mind by the end of it. Saw more than Luthen. Luthen hasn't quite lost his mind, but he's still incredibly paranoid. He's still not as sharp as he was when we first met him. And I think it's so interesting, especially when you kind of see the more extremist you go. From, Saw Gerrera's over here, Luthen's right here, and then the rest of them are over here. The longer you're in it and the more extreme you go, the more a toll it takes on you, the longer that you're into it. And Saw, when we see him in Rogue One, and I get towards the end of this, this is a guy that seems like a lunatic and is a hindrance to the rebellion. However, early in the rebellion, they don't win without Saw Gerrera. Yes, he's extreme. Yes, he does some crazy shit, but he is also a major, major reason why the rebellion eventually comes out on top for a while before they, let fascism rise up from underneath them again. The next part of this, after, Luthen scurries away, He informs Kleya of everything. It's a tough scene because although they're not saying a permanent goodbye, you can tell they kind of know that this is a permanent goodbye. And it's almost like a, hey, if we don't actually say the words, then we can pretend it's not that. But we've both been ready for this moment, and it's now time for both of us to do what we got to do. Dedra shows up at Luthen's shop. Kleya gets out of there. And Luthen, as much as I hate that he just shot our guy Lonnie like that, you got to respect that he's willing to do to himself the same thing he's willing to do to anybody else for the respect might not be the right word, but for the sake of the rebellion, he's not putting himself above anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, if he's worried about a secret getting out, he's just going to do what he's got to do regardless. And as soon as Dedra reveals she's onto him, he takes himself out so that he can.
Kinda.
I mean, he tries to.
He has blasters.
The blasters would have hurt a lot less anyways. He was trying to kill himself.
He could have made this entire episode much shorter if he didn't just I have this knife. I don't know if it's real or not, and does this whole thing with it, and then obviously he uses it to try. But I'm like, you have blasters, man.
Though. He didn't go into that thinking, I want to kill myself today. He went into it thinking maybe I can weasel my way out.
Second that doorbell
I don't have to, but if I do.
No, he knew the second that doorbell rang. You could see it on his face what he had to do. He knew. And at that point, he, as someone who wants to protect the rebellion as much as he does, he could have made that entire thing much cleaner.
Yeah, but no one just wants to, you know what I mean? It's easier said than done.
So you're saying everyone wants to save the world, but no one wants to die, TJ?
What?
Everyone wants to save the world, but no one wants to die?
I don't know what you mean. I'm saying it's human nature to naturally try and keep yourself alive until the last moment. That's what I'm saying.
He could have made that. As a huge, intelligent person that he is, he should have made that much cleaner. But
and then we'd all be complaining that he just shot himself in the head before we got our big showdown.
I actually thought he was going to blow the shop up. That's where I thought that was going. And I was surprised that he didn't. But that scene between Dedra and Luthen, my God, the writing in that scene of Luthen being there are at least, there are 2 items in this shop that are of what it is. I don't forget the exact words, but basically
questionable or no of, I don't remember what it was either.
Something we get it though. There are at least 2 things here that might be fakes, and it's them too. That's beautiful. I love that. And just the cat and mouse game that they're actually both playing with each other. They both know about the other. They both know what the other, the other's game. It's beautiful. I think Dedra's an idiot for letting him walk away with a knife in his hand. What are you doing? But she couldn't even conceive of the fact that he would have been, I'm going to say, selfless enough to sacrifice himself so that he wouldn't be tortured. And that it wouldn't be taken, beaten out of him or whatever. I guess it can possibly have been, information could have just been taken out of him with Imperial technology, I suppose. She should have seen that coming. And I thought he was going to go a little bigger with that, blowing up the whole shop. I also thought I didn't know what he was pouring on the keyboard. And I was like, is this a mini carbonite thing? What is he doing here? I thought he was freezing the machine Han Solo style. So the machine would just be forever.
No, full on torching it with some acid. And I was going to say exactly what MTF just brought up here. She needed to do her touchdown dance like many villains do. That was exactly it for me. That was the classic villain. I won. I've been chasing you for all these years, and I won, motherfucker. And of course, whenever somebody starts monologuing, it is very, very rare that it actually goes on in their favor. Connor and Chad says Dedra is complimented for her detention numbers in season 1 by Partagas, who says, I'll be sending more of that sort of work your way. Oh, the delicious irony that what he sends her on leads her to this, and where she ends up, which we'll get to, is some very painful irony as well. Luthen goes into, we get our flashback here of Luthen and Kleya and where they came from. Luthen was working with the Empire before he defected. Kleya was just a little kid stowed away in his ship, and she found him. And then we see their training sequences throughout the year. We get a little peek at Naboo, which was pretty nice, pretty cool. And we see him very similarly to Cassian with Marva and Clem grow up in this adopted family as the children try and escape from the Empire's wrath. And now I did think, as I was watching this for the first time, and I feel like an idiot because I thought, like, oh, this is what they're doing. And I was very clearly wrong. I thought for sure that what they were implying in these scenes is that was Kenari that he was on, and that was Cassian's sister that he has been looking for all this time. And I'm thinking, like, I did some like actor research, and I'm thinking like Kleya's like fairly ethnically ambiguous looking, like white passing, but could potentially be of a white passing of another race.
She could have been in Sinners, is what you're trying to say.
Could have played the Haley Steinfeld role. But no, just the actor is totally white. This just happened to be a totally different stowaway, totally different child rescued / stolen from a planet under siege. And we don't ever actually hear anything about his sister again, aside from a little dream we'll talk about later on. That did piss me off a little bit, like,
I was gonna be
just because we spent so much time in the first season being like, is this important? His quest. Damon, I know you were pissed about it too, so I'll throw that to you.
I mean, I was gonna save that to the end to be like, that's my biggest gripe with this entire show is how important Cassian's sister is, and then we just like
he's not
never get back to that at all. And if we are implying that she's dead, which she probably is, I would have liked at least a little bit of like a moment of Cassian kind of like coming to terms with that. But
Marva told us, and we just all thought that it wasn't the truth, but it apparently was the truth, and we never find out anything else again about Cassian's sister, and we are left to assume that she did die on Kenari. Carlos, what do you think of the little flashback sequence we see of the two of them meeting and him kind of becoming essentially her father?
I think that there are so many lone wolves and cubs in the Star Wars universe. It just seems like, hey, are you a cub? There's a lone wolf. I guess we're just going to pair you off and you're going to go on your way. I had, I don't know if I said this on
for the Mandalorian and Grogu.
I mean, Mandalorian and Grogu. I mean, obviously any
Anakin.
Jedi Padawan situation.
It was a little,
and then like you said, Marva, Cassian, like the galaxy is lousy with lone wolves and cubs. I can see why you might have thought it was that was Cassian's sister. It's because they had the sort of yellowish tint over the flashback, which is cinematic speak for Mexico. So you're like, this must be a Latino child is what's happening here. It's like Sicario or
no, that's not what was happening. I've been spending this whole series going, when will we get the Cassian sister moment again? And so I think I was just like trying to self-fulfilling prophecy it and just point it into any situation I could find. But
I do think
a
that
funny
Kleya
joke
would have
that,
known.
I'm not going to agree with just to not incriminate myself.
I think Kleya would have known if she was Cassian's sister, though. Like, because like even if she was too young,
Yeah.
she would have known she came from Kenari. She would have known Cassian came from Kenari. So I think that would have been handled as a plot point. Like I thought of it because it just seemed too similar to the Cassian backstory. But yeah, I quickly dismissed it because no, she would have. That would have been a thing.
When did she ever meet him in person, though?
Didn't they just meet in the last episode when he was like, didn't she give him like a
that the
speech?
first time though?
Oof.
Otherwise, he would have just
Not entirely
referred
sure.
because Luthen just would have referred to him as Cassian Andor, and that's not his birth name.
Right. But they also, I mean, also his like wanted picture was out there, like his hologram, whatever.
Connor says he thinks, and I think this is a great point. It ties into the overall theme of the Empire creating proverbial orphans wherever they go. Jin in Rogue One was an orphan. Cassian's an orphan. Dedra was an orphan. Kleya was an orphan. Wilmon was an orphan. So that's a really good point.
Yes. If you are the worst thing you can do in that galaxy is have children, because your days are numbered before that kid hits like 6. Like you are out of the picture.
They're either getting kidnapped by the Jedi Order, or they're getting murdered by the Empire. They're getting slaughtered by Anakin Skywalker in the Jedi Temple.
I mean, there is actually like now an entire. We do need the stories of Saw and Jin, like that lone wolf and cub situation, because she was with him for a while before I think he dumped her off. If I'm not mistaken.
Would make a very good Tales of the Underworld, Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Jedi story that they've been doing on Disney Plus. That would be a very good like Tales of the Rebellion. Yeah. Of just like a 3-episode arc of their relationship when they were younger. I feel like it would need to be animated. You wouldn't really be able to do that one live action near as easily.
Unless you just recast Saw at this point. But I will say I don't know if I said this on a pod or if I actually said it at dinner with Damon. But I had the idea that Kleya was Luthen's daughter, and that I was hoping that we would get some sort of a definition of their dynamic, because Luthen really does not take shit from people in the way that he does from Kleya. Like Kleya can tell him things that no one else can, and so I had said that, originally the first season, I thought Kleya might have been Luthen's boss. Like I thought maybe we were being misdirected, but by season 2, I was like, I think this is his daughter, and I think we're gonna get some sort of moment. I'm not a big fan of like you found a kid in the vents of your ship thing. I'm just not my favorite, but if it got us to now he's going to teach her. It basically became the professional at that point. Like now he's going to teach her how to be, a top-notch spy. I was cool with that. And I love Luthen testing Kleya with the bridge and the remote. And what is he goes, do it. Loved it. Like, yes, you said the thing.
Episode concludes with Kleya masterfully sneaking into the hospital to essentially pull the plug, but worse, because she's got to make it like a little more hands-on than that. Her dad and Luthen takes his last breath as she sneaks out of there. Damon, I feel like this scene for me, I thought this scene was really cool, but this scene for me was very much my version of your complaints about Luthen, of like, dude, you got some blasters. You could have made this a lot easier and not risked that information getting out. That's how I felt about Kleya at this moment. You need to transmit that fucking message before taking on a dangerous mission. I know this mission is high priority, but
no,
still,
this is killing Luthen was more a priority at that point.
He's not
they
gonna
can
wake up for a few days. You got to tell someone else.
No,
about the
no,
Death
no, no,
Star.
no, 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 no. Killing Luthen is way more of a priority at that point because he's a liability. You can get that
If he
message out and
wakes
it
up,
won't matter.
You got some
You can-
time. Transmission
What do
takes
you
30
mean he
minutes.
wakes- That's a when at that point because Luthen wasn't brave enough to use a blaster to his own head. Now she has to deal with this problem.
He was in critical condition.
It wasn't enough. So she had to go deal with this problem because it didn't matter if she, at that point she got that message across because when, not if, when he wakes up the next day, which was the plan, they will have some sort of way, we've seen it, where they extract all the information out
It
of
takes 30
him.
minutes to transmit a message. Do that first and then go rescue him.
It doesn't matter at that point.
Because
At
if
that
she
point,
dies
the
in the
rebel. No,
process, the message never gets
TJ,
out.
listen to me. At that point, the location of the rebel base is known. And at that point, you're cooked. You cannot let that information get out.
Yeah,
that is
then
way
tell
more
them
important.
that too. Share that in your message.
You can't
It's
just
all
pick
moot
all
if she
that up
dies
and
on the
you get out of
mission.
here. No. So she
You
did the
send
right
the message,
thing.
then you go.
No, she did the right thing and did the right thing and had to deal with Luthen not finishing his own job and doing it
I can't believe
herself.
this is a real take. This is the most ridiculous take I've ever heard. from
Carlos, do you agree with me
think?
that like the location of the rebel base at that moment, he knows everything with the rebels. They can extract all of it. It does not matter if they know at that point because he will give them all that information. It's cooked. It's done. Everything is done the second they get that information out of them.
Yeah, and you've had a lot of time to relay a message first. You
do not have 24 hours. No.
Well, I don't know that she knows how much time is.
He's not going to be conscious. And
okay, can I also go into this? You want to know like my biggest gripe with this show outside of the thing?
It took them weeks to get any information out of this.
Pause.
Weeks.
Because
with Dr. Gorst.
Pause. All this this critical information of what the Death Star is, right? Critical information. This is the first time they're hearing about it. What did we both do the second we finished watching this show? We watched Rogue One, where moments into Rogue One, you get a rogue pilot being like, the Death Star! Luthen died for nothing. That information was out there days later.
I don't know what you mean. I don't know how that would impact Kleya's decision.
I don't think Luthen died for nothing.
I'm exaggerating on that.
Yes,
on that.
Right.
But like that critical information, they literally got days later.
From Riz Ahmed's character? Is that it? I haven't seen Rogue One in a minute.
It was the rogue cargo pilot who goes to Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, the one that like, ends up calling them Rogue One.
They're building the Death Star, and they have like the big monster thing that like is he telling the truth?
Right. Yeah, the
that
issue
stemmed from Cassian's information, though. That's why he was the one on that mission. That's why he was the only one that person would talk to. That's why he was going there in the first place. That's what they set up in episode 12.
There you go.
Okay.
It's a good casserole, man. It's so good. So many layers.
I thought I literally the way they made it perceive it was just like there was like this guy who knew a guy who heard about this thing, which is kind of how things happen in the end.
Yeah. That's it.
Because like obviously we're skipping ahead, but it was like, oh yeah, we don't believe you about any of this. And then it's like next day, just kidding. We believe you now.
Yeah, this is the issue, and NTF states it in the chat, and I don't know how to bring up his comment, but they wouldn't have believed it otherwise. It had to be coming from like multiple sources, like there had to be corroboration. And
we'll skip ahead and get to that because it was eventually like what led that to them believing it. It wasn't until Vel convinced Mon Mothma in episode 11, 12. Vel convinces Mon Mothma in episode 11 after Vel talks to Kleya. And so Kleya still would have had to go kill Luthen and still had to get Andor to come rescue her.
Okay.
But she sends out that transmission to Andor immediately after going to kill Luthen. So what I'm saying is, just click that button first and then go kill him. And then we're still where we ended up. But just in case you die along the way, at least you did everything you could to get the message out. But alas, she doesn't get it out until the end of episode 11. But episode 11 starts with a little look at the Empire. What's the guy's name? Hirt? The little guy who took Dedra's job. He, Partagas, and Krennic.
H-E-E-R or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, H-E-E-R-T. I don't remember what they call him in the
captions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another
I've
one.
I've been calling him not Loki because he just kind of looks like.
And again, we get into one of my gripes with the show where it goes into, oh no, that guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Honestly, that's kind of a lot of Star Wars for me. I'm not going to even lie, but it's also a lot of just kind of stories for me. I will make up names for characters. I would like I said, like Lieutenant Weasley, I will just make up a name because I just need to know that I can follow who that is. Do not get me started with Lord of the Rings. It's taken me I was like, oh no, not the white guy with the beard and the sword. It's like, I don't know what's happening here. Who's the good guy?
Not the other dwarf.
Another that guy, Major Partagas, is teaming up with Hart and eventually Krennic because they don't know why Hart and Partagas think it's just about, or at least Hart thinks it's just about the Luthen situation. But Krennic is terrified that Dedra has released info. Either one, released the info herself about the Death Star, or two, has been compromised, ultimately leading towards the information about the Death Star getting out. And this is kind of the first beginning of her being treated as a traitor. And I think it's such a perfect example of why you never want to side with the oppressive regime. Because even if they convince you that these people are below you and we're not coming after you, we're only coming after them. Well, when they're done coming after them, as soon as you're not worthwhile to them anymore, guess what? They come after you too. And that's what we saw with Cyril in the last episode, him falling victim to that. That's what we see with Dedra in this episode, her falling victim to that. And Carlos, I want you to give your thoughts on the kind of intro to this. And as we're seeing this happen in real time, Dedra, who we hate, but she's given everything to the Empire, every last ounce of her mind, her emotions, her body. She grew up in the facility and she's served it her entire life. And they don't give a damn.
I think it's an interesting juxtaposition of the burgeoning nascent rebel alliance and how paranoid they are of each other. They don't trust each other, but they kind of have to. And the Empire, which is established, which has all of the backing, and they're paranoid. Like they think everyone's trying to undermine them. Which is probably a good sign that the resistance is working, because they're like, how are we failing so much? Like, how are we catching L's here and there? It has to be because we're being undermined. It's like, no, it's because tyranny is unnatural. It requires constant maintenance. Like it requires you to keep it up, and it leaks. Yeah, it leaks. That's what Nemec said. He was a prophet. And this is what happens. And yes, there were spies at work, but it's also people, trying to push each other down while they climb up, and you don't trust anyone. You don't have colleagues. You don't trust them. And so as soon as stuff goes wrong, and Dedra knows this, as soon as Luthen attempts to kill himself, she's like, I am screwed because I played this wrong. I didn't bring him in like I should have. I got a little too flashy, put a little too much dip on the chip, and now I'm going to pay for it, and she will. And yeah, her scenes with Krennic are insane. Like that interrogation is fantastic.
Connor Williams in the chat just absolutely preaching today. He says he noticed that, she's only ever been vulnerable and emotional when she's been alone. And
Yes.
we see the moment where obviously it's almost silly in the moment where she's like, turn out the lights before her and Cyril are intimate together. But we see shades of that again when ultimately she winds up in Narkina 6, the same prison that Cassian was in, walked up in season 1, the same one that I was going to say she ultimately sent him to, but not really, considering that he was a tourist at the time. But ultimately, he was only a tourist because she was chasing after him. And she winds up in that exact same prison. And when the lights turn off, that's when she finally breaks down and feels the true weight of everything that had happened to her. Damon, what are your thoughts on Dedra's the conclusion to Dedra's arc in Andor?
Rough, man.
That's rough, buddy.
Don't side with the evil side, because they're always going to need a fall guy, And congratulations, Dedra, you played yourself by going out of your way to really try to prove a point. And a lot of it is a hubris. A lot of it is to the ego of it all. And she had to be the one to take it down because she found this. And even though she was taken off that committee, off that project for what's his face to come in to be used as a human meat shield later on, which I find hilarious. It's very symbolic of what these people in middle management really are, and the Empire middle management. You're just a meat shield for everyone behind you. She overstepped. She overplayed her cards.
K2SO literally use Heart here as a meat shield.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And it's don't side with the Empire, man, because they're gonna need a fall guy. She got in over her head. She played her cards too tight. She even said it like, I should have reported this when I had the chance. I should have done this when I had the chance, because those are your outs. Those are your like, well, you knew about this then. You knew about this then. And because she dug in too deep, because she left her computer open one time, Lonnie Leasley over here manages to get into her account, find some information, and then it's a chain reaction.
She fails one corporate phishing email, and it's going to cost
the whole thing goes down.
I think just like Cyril, this show is great at showing us tragic antagonists without giving them face turns, basically, without having, they don't have a moment where they redeem themselves at the end. Even what's her Partagas? Is that his name? Even his final moments where he's listening to the manifesto, and he's just kind of realizing like, hey, this rebellion really is everywhere. Like, it's growing, isn't it? Like, he's really resigned to it, and he knows that he's next. Like, you don't feel bad for him, but you understand that it's a tragic moment for that person. Like, that their story is not going to end in any sort of redemption. They are going to die the villain, and they know it. They know they chose poorly. And I think that that's beautiful in its own way. I think that in a lot of storytelling, we've become accustomed to villains having to become anti-heroes, like they have to be redeemed somehow if they're, in the end. Like, no, like sometimes you can be the villain, not be arch. You can be the villain and understand, like, I made bad choices. That's what got me here. Kind of your Killmonger situation. Like, he knew what he did led to his death, and he accepts it, and it's tragic. And it is, and it is what it is. You understand how he got there. You understand he still made wrong decisions. And that's what Dedra, Partagas, Cyril, like all of them, you understand how they got there, but you understand that they made those decisions.
Because Kleya waited so long to send this message, the Empire figures out their tracking system right as
Don't you
Andor
dare
responds.
disrespect my goat
Right
in this
as
series,
Andor
TJ.
responds.
Good God.
Which wouldn't have happened if she had done it a few hours earlier. And so Andor and the Empire are both chasing after Kleya at the same time. It's a race to get to Kleya. And Andor eventually wins. She gets the message out. Andor eventually gets there first. But it's not until season 12 begins. Season 12, episode 12
Season
begins.
12, oh.
And K2SO kicks a whole bunch of ass to get them out of there. Andor gets into the room. They have no way of getting out of that room until K2SO comes in and kicks some absolute ass. I love his addition to the final arc, the final 3-episode arc here, because K2SO was as great of a movie Rogue One is. It's also very devastating and it's heavy. K2SO is one of the lighter parts of that movie, and it was great to kind of get that cheerful, hell yeah, kick some ass K2SO in this one here. What do you think, Damon?
Oh, K2SO is a top 3 droid because of his just hilarious sarcasm. Like, just top tier sarcasm. Where it's just like, do you know how many rules we're breaking? I'm counting. Don't care. We gotta go. That's 18. Where it's like, I love it. And he won't follow orders. He just does what he knows needs to be done and just goes in, kills some Imperial folks, and it's like, your rescue's here. You're welcome. Let's go.
I want to see an alternate universe cartoon of the Skeleton Crew kids, but with K2SO as the droid that they find, because he is perfectly fit to carry those kids through that little adventure that they have. Carlos, what do you think of ending of episode 11 into the beginning of episode 12, where I was going to say, like, we kind of get the conclusion to Kleya's arc, but not really, because she is also a very, very prominent character throughout episode 12 here, but she kind of has her finale of being in the trenches and returns to Yavin as kind of almost being a retired soldier a little bit.
Yeah, it's a death of a form of Kleya that we're
Yeah.
going to be used to. She's going to have a different role, and actually an unclear role going forward. I loved this episode. It was so, and actually, getting back to even episode 10, the architecture of that hospital, like you understand exactly like what she's got to do to get to the top. It's the raid, or it's like Dread. You understand, like, there are levels to this. She's got to get to the top, but you also understand, like, she can see across this courtyard to the windows, over there, so she knows how many guards. Like, that is such specific vision for just how this like, you almost feel like they built a hospital for that setup. Likewise, the safe house, the hallway, again, kind of feels like the raid. Kind of felt like the end of The Professional again. And you get the geography of the action. You understand that, like, if they turn that corner, there's a line of helmetless stormtroopers who are going to come after them. And you also understand, like, the whole thing with the communications being knocked out, and now K2 can't talk to them. And K2SO is my favorite droid. He is number one for me, because it's like, what if the Terminator, but like British and sassy? Like, he's like, are you with us? No. And he just like pushes the guy. Like, that's amazing. Love it. Yeah, I think I loved this sequence so much. I loved the POV shot after the stun grenade goes off, and like, you can see that, like, Cassian can't see, like, he's kind of barely, he's seeing bright lights and kind of shapes. I don't know that I've seen anything quite like that. Yeah, I dug all of this all the way down, and I love that the Empire can't get enough backup because Partagaz set up that lie that someone who is diseased was out, had escaped from the hospital. So everyone's looking for this lie that doesn't exist. Beautiful. He is like basically buried by his own, deviance,
Hoisted by his own petard.
deception. Yes, exactly. His deception has been his undoing. That's much better.
Nice!
Carlos. Thank you, Carlos.
Deception. We see Saw Gerrera finally fully losing it. In this 12th episode, we see him in the same frame of mind that he is when we meet him in Rogue One. Mon Mothma essentially gives him a call. Maybe it's Bail Organa, I can't remember. One of them gives him a call. And they're like, hey, Saw, so we know you're in Jeddah. And the Empire coming to crack down and try and find more kyber crystals there. He's like, you don't know that I'm in Jeddah. I could be anywhere. The whole galaxy. No, we weren't actually asking you if you were in Jeddah. Like we know that that's where you are. Lies.
Lies.
You are the enemy. Everyone's the enemy.
New hologram. Who dis? I'm in a tunnel.
I feel like because of their experiences with Saw and just being like, this fucking guy, like, we're on the same team, bro. Because of that, they have a lot more harsh and extreme feelings towards Luthen than are warranted.
Yeah.
Luthen is essentially the godfather of the rebellion. If he isn't behind the scenes putting all of these pieces in place, it doesn't work out. But Bail, Mon Mothma is unsure of him, but Bail Organa, the other guy who's in Rogue One, whose name I always forget, but I always think the actor looks like a young Kelsey Grammer, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
We're talking about Cassian's like superior?
Yeah.
Draven. I think he looks like a young Jorah Mormont from...
I think he looks like young Kelsey Grammer. Doesn't that look like a little baby Frasier? With better hair?
Salads and scrambled eggs, I guess. Yeah.
Either way, these people have no respect for what Luthen's done. They realize this intel has come from him and his people, and they're like, we can't believe it. Who is Luthen? We don't trust Luthen. He's got Cassian always running these errands. We want Cassian here doing nothing with us. It's
a Jedi Council 2.0.
It's a little bit of ridiculous when they're at they're at crunch time, like you said, Carlos, the end game of the rebellion. Damon, isn't it a little bit ridiculous how they're seem so willing to just like lay down and be like, we can't do anything? Like, it's not that point of the rebellion anymore.
Yeah, thank God for Mon Mothma to be like, no, because even like Cassian says, like, none of you have like ever like dealt with him. And they're like, no, it's like, except you, Mon Mothma, who's like the only one here who's actually dealt with him. So you can attest to it. And he's like, I can attest to it because I've seen the good and the bad. And I don't know how you all like have heard of the good or the bad because you don't deal with this man. I do. Type of thing. So it's like, so you should trust me. And they're like, no, we can't trust you. And he's like, oh my God. And then finally Mon Mothma kind of is like, I'll figure this out. And then she does. Because she's one of like the two level-headed people on that new Jedi order of just, we're going to sit on our comfy chairs and make stupid decisions.
And it is somewhat refreshing to see, even though there's many political differences between Mon Mothma, Luthen, Bail Organa, and all these different people, they ultimately are able to go, we are on the same side, so we will fight together.
Exactly.
Against the tyranny that is befalling our galaxy, our country. Imagine if a political party actually band together and tried to put the people first, going up against the wannabe emperor. Instead of just saying, hey, we'd rather lose because it doesn't hurt our pocketbooks. And so we're not going to put our best foot forward here. We're going to put the old man here because he's actually not going to mess with our donations. Anyways.
That is fair. Also, to MTF's point, like, if we didn't hear of the Death Star before, and then they're just like, they're building this weapon. And that's also part of it. They're like, well, what did it do? I don't know. It's a weapon. We haven't got that far yet. Someone else in the next movie is going to tell me exactly what it does. But as of right now, it's just a big thing, and it makes weapons.
But to be fair, they're not calling it the Love Star.
So they're like, yeah, it's going to be bad. And I can understand hesitancy, because in a world like this where there's going to be intentional false information and plants and all that stuff, you have to make sure that your information's right. But like, I just don't understand how they wouldn't trust. I mean, I get why they wouldn't trust Luthen. He's proven that he puts some things first over certain people. So I get it. But eventually we get there. I feel like that was just kind of like a little snag, just to kind of like, we got to extend this a little bit longer.
I mean, it's like you were saying with the Jedi Council, like, it's not a Star War unless the people in charge for the good guys are idiots when they have to be. Like we're seeing with is it Mandalorian, where the Senate is just the New Republic Senate is just like, they're idiots. They're idiots all the time. They can't see that, like, clearly there's an uprising of pro Palpatine, loyalists who are undermining them, and they're like hiring former Empire like scientists to do totally harmless cloning stuff. Yeah, it just can't be a Star War unless the people in charge are idiots when they have to be.
And inept when needed, and locked in and calculated when not. And I think that makes sense, though, because when you look at the scale of the rebellion, the scale of the Empire, you're going to have some really smart people and some idiots. Not saying that Bail Organa and Draven are idiots by any means, but it is unfortunate and sad that we kind of see the sad irony of Bail Organa, like, not trusting this whole Death Star thing right off the bat. He is against exploring it. He's against learning about it. Well, where does he go? A couple days, couple weeks later, whatever the timeline is, he finds out that his daughter, Leia, is in danger. She's been captured by the Empire. And so he goes home to Alderaan to be with his wife, which it's then immediately blown up by the Death Star.
Oh, spoilers.
R.I.P. Bail Organa.
Yeah, we're witnessing like him in the last 2.5 weeks of his life at this point.
Yeah.
Ironic.
Before they eventually believe, at least not even, if not believe, decide to explore Luthen's intel, it's not before Mon Mothma convinces them, because Vel convinces her, because Kleya convinces Vel. And we do get a nice little scene between Kleya and Vel, and I think a lot of people have been potentially shipping Kleya and Vel, even though Vel has been with Cinta from the beginning before she died. There's been like a lot of just like intense tension between Kleya and Vel throughout this series. They did not like each other. And now I kind of think we're seeing them come around to each other, and the shippers, I think, have a lot of potential hope for. I mean, I don't know if we ever see these characters again.
A new hope,
but a new hope about the future these two characters could have together before the Empire strikes back.
Oh,
Cassian goes to meet Tivik, setting up Rogue One. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Tivik, I don't remember what his name is, but I saw
Tivik.
Yeah, it looked like Tivik. Another one of those guys that is in right here at the end of Andor, and then of course sets us right into Rogue One. We get Nemik's manifesto.
Can I ask a question about that? Specifically about Tivik? Just to go back to my
Yeah. Sorry, I said
no. I was like, no. Oh, okay. I'll just walk away. how does Tivik find out? So in Rogue One, Tivik's like the one who's like, it's a planet destroyer. How does he get that information?
I thought from like when they are discussing what it could be, look into this more from the conversation that Cassian and Tivik have in episode 12 here. Like when he's like, oh, only talk to Cassian, and then Draven's like, fuck, I guess we got to bring him back in. We just benched him, but I guess we got to bring him back in. I thought it was in that moment, but I still don't know. And again, this is probably one of those things that would have been explored if they have their original 5-season plan, because Andor is essentially just like, oh yeah, I know him. I don't trust him. I wish I could, but I don't trust him. And then he just shoots him at the start of Rogue One. And so like there was, I feel like, more history there and more to that conversation, and it was kind of one of the things that got cut.
Because that's the whole thing with me, where it's like, did somebody send Tivik out to find more information, or did Tivik find out at the exact same time that like Luthen and all of them found out about the Death Star, like separately? Because that's what I was getting at. Like, if he found out at the same time, then like
what I'm saying, but I'm honestly not positive. Like, I can't be like, what I said was right, what you said was wrong, because I don't know for sure. That's what I think happened, but I don't actually know.
That's my big question with this, because it would be very unfortunate if it was like Luthen got all these, like he finally found out, he's like, we got to get this information out, and then he dies, and then theoretically the information would have got out anyway. That would be very unfortunate.
It's also one of those things that it's like, we did it. We destroyed the Death Star, this super weapon they've spent the last 30 years creating. Just kidding. They can make another one in a year and a half.
It's a bigger one.
It's like, it is one of those things where it's like all of the calculated, momentous things that had to happen for us to get to this point. But we got it back anyways. Didn't matter. Somehow, Palpatine returned.
Somehow the Death Star came back. Again.
One of those things that does, like, if you really think about it, make like the big moments feel a little less big, but that's what happens when you're telling a story in the same universe over a 50-year span.
I do like that Kleya doesn't remember the words Death Star. Like, she's remembering all those terms, but she doesn't remember Death Star. Like, she's got like Galen or so, and like she's got all of the other stuff, kyber crystals, Jedha, but she cannot remember the term Death Star, because when you get to Rogue One, Death Star's got to be a surprise.
MTF says in chat too, I think they put out feelers. It was something of like, that's why Mon Mothma was calling Thaw at that point too. It was like, hey, the energy program, it's a lie. They're going for kyber crystals on Jedha. It's for this weapon. What do you know about what you've seen there, kind of thing? Like, I think that was the purpose of the conversation, but I think that to me as well, I don't know if that was elaborated overly well, but again, maybe it's something, if we go back, rewatch specifically looking for that, then it might be a little bit easier to pick up. Nemik's manifesto is splashed out throughout the galaxy for the universe to hear. Cassian is laying in bed before his big Rogue One showdown, and he's dreaming of his sister. We get the final mention of his sister there, which, now that I'm thinking about it more, especially because he wakes up from this dream with his sister and is immediately like, he sees Bail Organa. They have their little moment. He sees the Force healer who told him how important he is to the rebellion, because he's going to be part of a time destiny altering moment. She gives him the little nod. I kind of feel like this dream now is saying, you've been searching for your sister since the beginning of the series, and now you're about to be reunited.
Ooh.
It's dark, but the Force works in mysterious ways. Force visions work in mysterious ways. Now, while he's not Force sensitive, that does feel like a dream of his sister from the beyond saying, like, it's almost time to come home, Casa. And
yeah, I could see that. I wish it was a little more straightforward.
Mm.
Just a little bit. Because it's a little like, it's vague. It's, maybe she's still out there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she's still out there, Carlos. Maybe she did have a kid whose name is Poe. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe she did. Right, exactly.
Maybe
No,
she
I like it vague. I think that I don't need to know that she's alive or dead. I actually would love to see Bix carry on, like in ADY, like after Cassian's death, after finding out what Cassian did, just like kind of devoting her life to finding, his sister. I think that'd be great. But also her Cassian looking for his sister is what got him into the thrust of this story, into the thrust of the rebellion, because it's in looking for his sister that he kills two corpos, that then Cyril's looking for him, and now and they know he's from Canary, like all of that is because he was looking for his sister. It had to be. It is kind of his his destiny,
And ultimately, we do see a baby at the end of this episode.
Baby.
And it's Andor's. Cassian and Bix. Bix was pregnant when she left. And now we see their little baby. Maybe that's Poe.
No.
That we see.
We've apparently, I need to get this confirmed, but if you watched the Resistance animated show, anyone?
I've tried to.
Apparently Poe's parents are in that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well then,
well,
I'm actually happy to hear that, because this leaves my theory alive.
Well,
we have had the little potential teases that Bix may have a little bit of Force sensitivity within her.
Who are you saying this baby is?
This baby is no one we have met yet, but this baby we will meet in Rey's new Jedi Order movie.
Oh.
When she's going to find and recruit people who are Force sensitive, she is going to find a kid, or not a kid, it'll be an adult at this point.
He's like 30
who
at this
been
point.
practicing the Force. That's how she heard about him, because of this adult who's been practicing the Force. She's going to go find him. And how are we going to know that it's him when we see him? Maybe his last name is Andor, and maybe we get that reference right off the bat. But when Rey is going to go looking for him, you know who she is going to encounter first when she's looking for him? Answering the door? B2 Emo.
Mm.
He's gonna be shacked up with B2 Emo doing some Force things, and we're gonna meet him in Rey's new Jedi Order movie. That is my theory. Carlos, what do you think about the way Andor Season 2 concludes? We get all of these moments, everybody's arcs all tied up, and then we see Bix, who everyone was terrified wouldn't survive this series, out and living alone with Cassian Jr.
I like that we're I agree, but I like that we're all very sure that's Cassian's son. It's been a year. Like, it might not be Cassian's son. It's like, oh no, this is Rey's guy, or I guess Rey is a Star Wars name. This is Rodney's guy, or Rodney's baby. I met him when I moved back. He's real good. Anyways,
Real good.
I love the way this ends. I loved, like you were saying, about the Nemec's manifesto being broadcast. I love that whole scene where Pardagast, the Maester. I'm just going to call him Lieutenant Maester, because when he's he is realizing the defeat, like he feels like, oh, this is over. Like, we're not going to win this. He knows, and he knows that he's done too. All of that. But the beauty and the elegance in the moment outside of that room where the stormtroopers are waiting to arrest him, and dude knows he's going to kill himself in there. Like, the blaster goes off and he just puts his hand up so gently, like, nope, it's fine. Like, and they just kind of put their guns back down. Oh my God. Like, that was, I mean, my mouth, like my jaw dropped. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. I love that moment so much. The montage at the end where we're seeing everybody, as Cassian is getting on his ship. I love where everyone ends up. I had no idea where Mon Mothma's husband was going to end up. Had no clue. That was not in any way spoiled for me.
With Davos Golden's wife.
Yeah. I wish we would have seen his daughter or her daughter. Like, how did that end up? Like, how is their marriage going? I kind of want to know. Dedra's final moments in prison, like, I would say heartbreaking, except my heart's not broken. Like, it just isn't. But great acting in that moment. That moment when the lights go off and she shatters, like, that's beautiful. Like, it's such good acting. I am hopeful that Kleya is gonna find like a quote unquote normal kind of happy life. She's been living on the run since she was a child. All of it. And then Bix working as a migrant farmer. Okay, not the best ending, but I guess you get to be with B2 Emo on planet Naburaska, as I called it. Where apparently they grew all of that rye in real, like, IRL, and probably then like
they probably just came to where I live and we're like, this is
they just went to Nebraska.
They apparently pulled like a Chris Nolan and they grew that rye, and then I guess the strikes happened and like they were like, we've got all this rye growing, what are we gonna do?
Why don't you just go to like Iowa or something?
I mean, why did Chris Nolan grow all that? Was it corn that they're growing in Interstellar? I forget what they're growing in Interstellar, but like he planted that. It made no sense. If for any reason you're ever going to use the volume, my God, it'll be endless fields of wheat, please. But anyways, I do love how this ends, and I love how it goes right into Rogue One. I will say though that for the final arc of the show gets more away from theme and gets way more into plot. Like you can feel it changing gears, having to set up Rogue One. You can feel it having to, like, we've got to get these characters in this place to do this. And it gets away from sort of the more thoughtful stuff. Not that these aren't thoughtful moments, because again, I loved a lot of this, but it does feel very plotty and to get to where it needs to be at the end. But I actually consider this arc almost an epilogue, because I think episode 9 is the peak. Like, I think that's getting Mon off of Coruscant. I think that's the climax of the series.
Damon, any final thoughts on Andor Season 2? Any theories with Bix and her baby?
Oh God, I thought you were going to say any theories on what happens to Cassian Andor.
Just one theory.
What happens to him after this series ends?
Oh man, if only there was a movie dedicated to that. I feel like they should make it.
I think he's gonna. You know what? I'm seeing it. I think he's gonna end up on a beach. I think he's living good life. Good for him. He's on a beach with a pretty lady.
I think he's gonna see his sister.
Oh, oh dear. Oh my.
That's no sister.
I really don't. I'm kind of one of those people where I'm like, I kind of hope that baby's just nobody. And it's like, she lived a happy life. She had her kid on Naburaska. I'm sorry, I cannot remember what that planet's called. She had her kid there, happy, quiet life. B2 Emo playing tag with another droid. It just looks quiet. It just looks peaceful. It looks like something that, like, there's a theme at the end of this show that they started to get into with several characters where they're just like, I'm done. I'm tired. I'm done. And Cassian experienced it, and that's why Bix ended up leaving, because she knew he can't be done because he's too important. So in order for the rebellion to keep going, she had to leave, which is tragic. Kleya experienced that same thing after she gave the message. She's like, I did my part. I'm done. And Cassian said, no, there's peace for you. There's a life after this for you. He knew, because he needed that too. Luthen, no, he was done, but he dedicated so much for his life to this cause that like the end of his life had to be for the cause. So there's a lot of like that symbolism in there that I really enjoyed and I really appreciated. I know I wasn't here last week to talk about that last episode 9. I loved that episode of them getting off, especially with the Rebels, the Rebels tie-in to that too, because we know in Rebels her giving that speech. So I was curious. I was like, as I'm watching this, I'm like, how are they going to are we going to see the Rebels crew here? Is like, what's going to happen? And they just like quickly brought up like Gold Squadron and we're going to manifest this entirely different story type of thing. I was like, oh, what a neat little way to kind of retcon this.
Have you seen what Tony Gilroy said about that? Like that, he knew that there was this scene in Rebels and he's like, do I have to use that fucking speech? He's like, I want to write my own speech, and I actually think it's his brother, right? Dan Gilroy, like, and it's an amazing speech. Like it's bars from beginning to end. I'm sorry, continue.
No, it's just
Rebels one is really good too, but it was pretty perfect how they made that work. Of like, no, she's going somewhere else. Rebels reference.
She's going somewhere else. Rebels reference. And if you want to see that speech, go. I almost kind of wish it was a little pop up that's like, if you want to see that speech, go watch this episode.
You want it to be a comic book.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little editor's note popped up in the bottom right hand of the Disney Plus corner. I actually think that would work a lot with a lot of Disney Plus things, but that's besides the point.
Oh my God, I think you've just cracked the MCU problem. If they just put, oh my God.
If we just put editor's notes on things and you could just watch a clip of something.
You just go straight to the clip and come back. My God.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to speed us through the conclusion because we've already been here for an hour and a half. We did our basically ratings for this before we started with ranking it among the top Star Wars shows. Carlos, you can find on social media, Carlos Freitas Jr., Big Los 2012 on Instagram. You can, but most importantly,
Instagram apparently.
Most importantly, you can find his incredible Andor essay up on agentsoffandom.com. I assume you'll be seeing his work again when we get a little bit closer to the bear. And if we do cover the bear on the podcast, you'll be seeing him here as well. Thank you to Carlos for joining us. Damon, wonderful as per usual. And you can find Damon's full thoughts on this week's releases of comic books tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern time, talking absolute Batman, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Black Panther, and Gwenpool. And then we have a really fun interview immediately after that. So stay tuned. It's all going to be live on Friday. Damon and I will be back talking trailers, little Superman, little Peacemaker, little Ironheart. And then on Monday, Sean and myself will be back talking The Last of Us. We have a really fun episode planned for that, actually. We got a bunch of guests coming in. And we have a really fun episode for The Last of Us coming on Monday. You can find my interviews with the Andor cast up on the Agents Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your podcasts. Denise Gao, Kyle Solar, who play Dedra and Cyril, Genevieve O'Reilly and Stellan Skarsgård, who play Mon Mothma and Luthen. And you can also find our Thunderbolts review up on the Agents Fandom YouTube page. You can find my interview with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Sean's interview with Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier up on the Agents Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your pods. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We will see you next time, hopefully tomorrow. And we are done with Andor forever here on the podcast.
You don't think season 3 is happening?
What is the next Star Wars thing we're going to be covering? I don't know. But we sure have a lot of Marvel and DC coming up in the next little bit. So stay tuned. Thank you for coming, everyone. And we'll see you next time.